Good evening. Good evening.
Hey.
I, s- I see the professor in the house. And of course,
Hello.
the sometimes anonymous, but sometimes Contest Toshi over there on the Noun Square for another wonderful evening of the Food Noun
Hola.
O'Clock Wednesday Soapbox series.
This is giving me aloha vibes.
Yeah, I'm vibing. I'm
So,
vibing on this
It's
one.
actually it's Latin cafe, chill out bossa nova music in honor of
nice.
DevCon being happening this week.
I like that. Way to go, Toshi, on that one. Very chill.
Let's everyone remember to share the space. I'm also just behind the scenes here, sharing it in Discords and such. So have an awesome space, guys.
Well, thank you so much. And we really appreciate the co-hosting there. So this evening and this week, we've been very focused on something that we feel is really important at Food Nouns, and Food Noun O'Clock as a fun official extension of Food Nouns DAO, basically a group of us holders getting together and making these shows. But one of the things that we would like to talk about this evening is what will be and could be our first on chain prop, as well as a micro funding prop project out of the prep kitchen. And what I'm speaking about more specifically is helping to facilitate a food pantry that we really believe in, that we have a personal connection to in the Nounish community via Prof Worder, the Nounish professor, but the Florida Gulf Coast University Food Pantry specifically helps students at college who are potentially food insecure or need food at a certain time in their college career. And so within that, we're also facing a post hurricane situation, which, as anyone can imagine, and obviously the people living there have to live through, is not an easy one. And so we're here this evening to talk about this project and this prop together as a group, as well as get a real understanding for what the community is facing and how we can, as a group of foodies and chefs and people who, some of us are involved in Food Nouns DAO, how we can be a part of a local community and use some of the funds that have been accrued to do exactly what the group of us have intended, and that's to support really great food ideas. And so we welcome the Nounish professor. Thank you so much for coming this evening.
Thanks so much,
We're
Sheffo. I
here.
appreciate you so much.
We're here. We're
Thanks
in
so
the
much.
kitchen.
Yeah. We're in the kitchen.
The stove
We're
is
cooking
really hot.
away.
I'm standing next to this thing. It's like 520 degrees. We've got the convection ovens on. It's hot as heck. No, but in all seriousness, most professional kitchens are over 100 degrees, and if you can't take the heat, you got to get out of the
Yep.
kitchen. But so this evening,
I was always the front of the house, but I did always, you always had to slide through the kitchen.
oh,
So
absolutely,
at some
absolutely,
point.
front of the house and back of the house definitely intermingle. There's no doubt about that.
Yep.
There's no avoiding that. and and that's a good thing. But
Yep.
for tonight, we will table the restaurant conversation, right? And we will find our way.
It would not be a nounish show without a lot of puns, people.
I
Puns and dad jokes.
It's
That's what
required.
people come for. It's absolutely required.
I feel
Yep.
like we need a Toady Hawk intern, or like a
Right.
team. There needs to be a Toady Hawk pod where like you have.
Loving this
I'll
already.
just stop there. This would be so amazing. So
That we could just riff on
we
that for a while. So
I
we'll,
just
yeah,
we'll get
I
Toady in
know
here.
exactly what you're saying. I know
I know
exactly
he
what
was
you're saying.
asking about food
Funny.
nouns earlier and stuff, and so
Yeah.
we'll get him into our ecosystem deeper. And
Well, something
yeah,
that was interesting this morning, or this afternoon was, yeah, they were talking about what are the active
right. I heard all of
subgroups.
that
Yeah,
for
so you heard
sure.
that. And food nouns is definitely on that list.
Well,
You
and
get
it
past,
just made me want to be like, oh
yeah,
golly, I want it to be
yeah,
more active and all that. And I think that the Discord is such a great tool, and it really is. It's just kind of one of these cool things about Web3 that if you have a good Discord, then it does go a long way. And so I think that
absolutely.
we will continue to see that bloom as we go. But yes, we were honored to
And I
be
think
part of that
all of this,
conversation.
I think everything we're like everything Food Nouns is doing with Twitter Spaces, and even though it's small, like you still have recordings that get heard after the fact. Even if we're doing, smaller spaces, we're still getting words out, and we're covering so many different types of topics with these spaces that I think it's amazing.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and I love, and I really appreciate. So just to kind of fill in anyone who may not be aware, um, I teach at a university in Southwest Florida, and we had Hurricane Ian come through here about 2 weeks ago, and just decimated parts of this area. And I mean, decimated, like gone. There are areas that were just completely washed away, and homes that were washed away, and people who, are just completely displaced. And so there's a lot going on. And now we're trying to get, back to classes and back to some normalcy, in the midst of this, still continuing chaos. And one of the issues was a lot of people lost all the food that they had in their house, from if it was refrigerated because the power was out for so long. So you're restocking to begin with. Then we have supply shortages. We had for a while, people couldn't even get through because one of our highways was impassable, and so you couldn't have supply trucks coming through. And so there's been a number of different issues that we've been, dealing with in the past couple of weeks, and talking with food nouns, and they it just, how can we help is amazing, right? It's amazing. The nounish community is always stepping up to say, how can we help in situations like this? So, to be able to chat with you all about in Prep Kitchen and say, hey, can we, do something quickly to try and help meet this need? And there, I'd reached out to our on-campus food pantry and said, what is it that you need, right now that isn't coming in yet, and all of that. And so Monday, I went and just loaded up, and we brought in 68, I think it was, pounds of food. Um, and so it was frozen food, and they really wanted some frozen meals. And then they ended up getting a truck of frozen meals, and now their freezer's full. So we switched to getting them some milk. So I brought milk and cookies on Tuesday, so because they said, hey, we need a lot of milk. I'm like, you got it. So we kind of kept, just talking it through with them and trying to meet their need. And as I talked to them more, she said, all of a sudden we have a couple big shipments coming in, but, this people are going to forget about us. So if you can maybe wait another week or two, like, we'd love to see what the needs are then. And I said, absolutely, we can do that. But to let you know, on day one of us being back open, Monday, they had triple the number of students that they normally have um, come to the food pantry with food insecurity. So that's pretty amazing.
It is amazing in a very real way.
Yeah.
I think that sad sometimes is
Hmm.
an inactive word, but
Mm,
real in a way maybe is a bit more
yeah.
actionable. But I have actually some statistics here in front of me that I'll read from Feeding America. But they say essentially that 71% of college students are what are considered non-traditional in the sense that they're not being funded by their family, so they're on some
Right.
potential part-time enrollment, or they're working and in school, and or combinations of.
And I will say that at our university, about 70 plus percentage
Mhm,
of, I think it's actually 80% of students
mhm.
are working 20 plus hours a week.
Right,
So
exactly.
to help, pay for school. And we have about 25% of students that are first in time, first person from their family to go to college. So that's another aspect of that. So
which is
yeah,
amazing.
for sure.
And I think that part of the conversation that we're really having is oftentimes, I think traditionally in the um, school food program conversations that are had in these realms, a lot of times it's focused on younger children, whether it, you know, it's,
Absolutely.
kindergarten through fifth grade or middle school or into high school, but it's oftentimes doesn't include college. And obviously there's reasons for that, but I think it's important to also acknowledge that college kids are physically, their body is still growing, their brain is still growing, they're learning high level things. We're asking them to train themselves to come into the workplace, to be a functioning member of society. And within that, like, nutrition is very important. And so I honestly had not given this a lot of thought until we started talking about this, and I'm kind of fascinated by it because this idea of there being brick and mortar food pantries on college campuses is not really, I don't think, understood well enough as like a really great opportunity to create nutrition
Yeah.
in our world. And so I think that it's also one of these things that I won't call it easy, but as far as like moving mountains goes, creating hubs for food donations and food interactions is not as hard as other things in the food world. And so it is a pretty cool thing. And for Food Nouns to be able to be a part of it, potentially, I would say, then, I'm interested in that from a scalability standpoint as well. We're going to be experimenting with micro funding and, how to be effective with Ethereum and get it into dollars and turn it into groceries, and then which type of groceries. And then part of what we'll talk later on about is inspiring cooking and teaching cooking. But in reality, we do have an opportunity to get things right, get it right again and again, and then potentially be an organization that could affect much larger change when it comes to
Yeah.
food and food insecurity, especially, and maybe potentially, these disaster situations. And so we really appreciate you helping us figure this out and creating this. And we also hope that you and your community are doing the best that you can. And I'm sure, are definitely facing all sorts of hassles and things along the way. And so we are thinking about you. We see your post up top there. And
Yeah,
so
I just posted that I wanted to share the photos with everyone who's here, just to give you an idea of what it was that we donated and sort of the thank you that we got from them. And this has been eye-opening for me as well. I mean, we had a food pantry. I've donated before, but it's been very, I haven't thought about it too much, right? It's been
mhm,
a little bit more rote. And then knowing that this need was going to be increased, just knowing off the top of my head without even knowing, without having data, I just knew that we were going to have people who are going to be struggling, really helped me look at this differently. And then, especially talking with Nono Dynamo and you about, what we could do and sort of thinking this broader, I think we have an opportunity here to use this as a pilot to maybe, spread this to college campuses everywhere and maybe start this as one point of entry into working on food insecurity.
it's a
And you're
super
right.
interesting
Yeah.
conversation, and I think it's um, it's an untapped potential,
Mm,
uh, like nutrition point. I don't know necessarily
yes.
what the right word is, but like there
Well,
are
we have an opportunity to help
opportunities,
these students,
right?
start off better, right? To start their
And it's very
adult
nounish.
life better.
I think
Very, yeah.
we have another proposal that's involved with the University of Michigan, the beer garden.
Yeah.
There are buddies, there are beer homies, but in reality, like, they might be serving beer and all that. The beer, 100% of the beer goes to a wonderful cancer charity. So, like, that's obviously incredible. But one thing that they're doing is that they're bringing the Nounish ideas and thoughts, to college students. And college students inherently are, a lot of them are there to think and to learn. And so I do think that there's something interesting about spreading some of, like, the Nounish
Hey, Shep, I
opportunities
just want
into
to
it.
interject some facts
No.
right here. It's
Yes.
No
Hey,
Dynamo,
no.
but I'm all
Welcome.
about facts. And there was a Cambridge University study internationally that found that college students who have food insecurity have a 42% lower odds of graduating. And the findings jump to 68% on first generation of college students.
First in time college.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So I
Wow, that's
just wanted to
incredible.
add
That's a
that
really
fact
special
because
that group.
and I'm
That
not
group of
trying to interrupt,
people.
but Prof was
Yeah.
mentioning that how much there were issues, and I just wanted to say that that academic performance on the college level is being studied, and that is the most recent after COVID study for 2021. So it's 42% for regular kids, and then 68% of an impact for first time college students in a family.
Well,
So, and that particular group can be, that's a challenging group, right? They're not, it's new to their family dynamic, and oftentimes
right.
they're either immigrants. We have a lot of, large Hispanic population, Latin American population that this is their for, they're the first time in college, and you know that there's just additional challenges there. So we spend a lot of extra time and focus around those students to try and keep them on track. So it's really
It's
interesting to
really
hear
an
that. I didn't know
interesting
the
look
food connection, so that's
into.
fantastic. Yeah, that's really interesting.
There's lots of stories in numbers, and you also can't allow numbers to tell all the stories. And I think that we really do need to, you know, take time to learn and to be honest. And we're not a political institution. Nothing thus far within the Nounish ecosystem is political, and I think that's wonderful. I think everyone has done that by design, and I hope that it continues in that way. But there are reasons why a lot of this is happening, and it's a very weird mixed bag of things. And so within all of that, as foodies and as food people, like, we can stay focused on doing the part of it that we can do while other things are continuing to evolve. And so within that, I think that helping to increase the nutritional density of the the average college student is an admirable cause. And I think that this is really something that I personally am very proud will be one of the first, if not the first, on-chain proposals for food nouns, as well as potentially, if not the first, micro-funded project in the prep kitchen. And so I really applaud you, Prof, for being very community oriented. You've been that way since I first met you in New York, and to see that essentially affect action on the ground is also quite interesting. And I think that hopefully, we're just getting started with this experiment.
Yeah,
And
and
so
I know it's so fun to watch, these things come from idea to execution
I
so
love it.
quickly, and I think that's something that is unique to Web3, when you're trying to deploy capital and you're dealing with nonprofits, it can get complicated and slow, and there are application processes that can take months and all these things. In Web3, we can move really fast, and it's fantastic. So we're able to meet those emergency needs, but also to think more greatly about the bigger issue, and let's see how we can have a more sustainable impact is phenomenal as well. So, and I appreciate, what I really appreciate with Food Nouns and with a lot of the Nounish communities is these amazing people, like amazing people who come in and they just kind of slide in under the radar, and then you realize that like their backgrounds, and I'm including you in this discussion. So we have these amazing chefs, and and Ryan and you, and Nono as a, she calls herself an amateur chef or whatever, baker. But the backgrounds for some of these folks that you don't even know, like you folks who are listening, like you don't know, no, she got some interesting stuff there that she's done and that she's doing. So it's so cool that we, let's tap into all of that. Let's pull those chefs that let's work with that, let's use that test kitchen brain you got, Ryan, and let's, try to use these amazing talents to, make the world a better place. And I think that's pretty much sums up like almost every Nounish subgroup that I can think of. So, which is amazing.
Well, thanks so much. And now I have a new tagline. You don't know, no.
You don't know, no.
Well,
every time I have a conversation with her,
continue.
she'll drop like some other like amazing fact in, and I'll be like, wait, hold on. Can you back up for a second? I'm sorry. Did you say you went to Stanford? Let's hold on one moment. Like, okay, I'm sorry.
No, Dynamo can be a factoid machine, that is for sure. So within that, let's get down to some of the nitty gritty, and let's drill down on some of the specifics for this part of the conversation, and then we'll finish off the evening with a bit more creative recipe conversation. And so, Prof, can you give us an understanding of what we're talking about here? So at Florida Gulf Coast University, how many students are in the general population?
We got about 15,000.
Oh my goodness!
Students. Yeah,
that's a large,
good size university.
Large enough little school there. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
so it's not huge. We're not like the biggest. The Florida university system is pretty big. So our biggest school is probably University of Central Florida, which is like 60,000.
Okay.
So we're on the, we're in the mid range in terms of the sizes, but it's a significant population.
Now, you have had an opportunity to develop a relationship with the food pantry. Does the food pantry have a specific name that I should be calling it?
No, it's just it's the FGCU food pantry.
Okay.
Yep. Nothing, no specialness there. But yeah,
I didn't know if it had been created by an alumni and had a name or something, like a famous chef.
You know what? You just gave me a really good idea.
Right.
Hey, we might have a goal down the road.
Right. So, within that, that's cool. So, how did you develop your relationship with this part of the school?
So, this is a sort of an organization that has its own little space. They have their own, area over by our health center, so that's close to where the students, that connection makes sense.
Perfect.
And I think
food is medicine.
Talking with them, yeah, exactly. I think I first started talking with them when I started at FGCU. I started in the School of Resort and Hospitality Management, where I was teaching hospitality law, and
Very cool.
I did some administrative stuff. And part of what I did,
we should put together a series around some of that.
There's a lot. Yeah, I know. I have a whole bunch of background that's a little crazy, but
very cool.
So part of what I was doing, I also was responsible for some events within the School of Resort and Hospitality Management. So in doing that, we would often have
I have a bachelor's
leftover
degree
food
in hospitality management.
Say again?
I have a bachelor's degree in hospitality management.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
From where?
And, Johnson and Wales.
Nice. Rhode Island?
The Charleston campus.
Charleston. Nice.
Yep.
I remember going to the Rhode Island one for a bunch of different
nice,
activities over the years. Yeah, when I was in, because I grew up in Massachusetts. So
sorry to interrupt. Go on.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good conversation. So I would, when I started actually at the university, I came in, I was taking over for a chef who left at the very last minute, and they needed somebody to teach 3 classes last minute, and they were intro to food and beverage and catering.
Nice.
So two, and I'm not a chef, right? So I'm only back of the house. So this was interesting. And I was like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to teach the cooking part of this. And then I ended up, finding a chef who could come in and do that part of it. And so some of that was really like, oftentimes we'd have food that we would buy for the class. We had certain, would have a lab fee. So we'd buy food for the food and beverage class. And we'd end up with some that were, big bunches that were just left over that didn't get used. So we would, try to connect with the food pantry to make sure that we could do something with that and it wouldn't go to waste. So we did that. So that was my first connection with them. But really, it's been very tangential since I left that particular department and moved over to the School of Entrepreneurship, where I teach full time now. So this has been recent where I've reconnected with them and talked with their director within just the past few weeks to reconnect and say, okay, I know there's going to be increased need. How can we help? And it's been, amazing to learn more about what they're doing. And it's also been really interesting for me to be able to share this with the students who weren't aware we had a food pantry. So marketing is a whole other issue that, I'll deal with later, but, to try and help them out with that. But I didn't realize that that so many students didn't even know it was available. And I've been making sure they know this week. And there's they're having quite a few new visitors this week. So
Well,
that's
maybe
been our
that can
connection.
be one of the challenges of the project
Exactly.
is how do we let people know? And I think
Exactly.
within that can maybe potentially be part of the conversation that we have in the recipe part of the evening, which we can smoothly melt our way into. But basically, I think that some of these social media algorithms, I mean, they have like local elements to their algorithm, and so it would stand to reason that if someone was making a TikTok or making Instagrams or whatever and tagging the school, that it could be interesting. I mean, you have to find someone who's willing to talk about going to a food pantry and cooking, items that they've gotten at a food pantry. I think that that's a sensitive topic for people, and I think, to be completely honest, most people don't um, don't lead with that, and within that, you know, how do how does
I wanted to comment just like I really like the natural nature of the discourse, which is something that I've been trying to promote in spaces where you can kind of jump in and make a comment and then go quiet.
Bags, welcome this evening, Bags. Good to have you
Good to
here.
see you.
We are talking about filling bags this evening, and so hopefully you can help us figure out ways to fill those big bags up, sir, because we're trying to
Well,
do
I
that.
think like a natural discourse rather than a monologue is beneficial.
Yeah,
Oh, for sure.
absolutely. I think that in reality, from even just a purely entertainment standpoint, it's good to have different form factors of conversation, and so within that, it's
I,
here we are
I
now.
also think on the topic of proliferation, or as we like to call it, pollination in food nouns, like spread word, as we start to capture what we're doing, it doesn't necessarily have to be the person who's receiving. It would be nice if someone who received it, and we will encourage that. But the people who work there themselves, my experience is that in capturing the process and sharing that locally with the local algorithms, Twitter is less local than Instagram or Facebook, but or YouTube.
We have like a whole new sense of local. Like local is like it's like we're like nounish in the local sense, but like global, it's like we're in a local noun
Totally.
community, but
Absolutely. There's different
So
forms
that's
of
international.
Local almost just means like, in a way, obviously it can mean local as far as geographic mileage, but local can also mean like how many connections you are removed from something. And there are a lot of quote,
And
local
often the
people.
personal becomes the universal, which is something that Plato said.
That's a
You know,
fantasy. That's a fantasy, though. That's a shadow. There's a shadow fantasy that you're imposing upon a suspected audience that you assume is perceiving you in a way. It's like that's what artists do. That is art. That is art.
but
It's doing that.
if a student is hungry, and we're particularly speaking about helping Prof feed this one food bank at a college because there's a hurricane, but there's lots of hungry kids at college that may not be doing as well. So that personal experience of someone who is hungry, or the experience of providing in this local nature, becomes the universal to every
Very well
hungry
said. Well
person.
said. Exactly. Well said.
And so
Very
that's all
perfectly.
I'm saying. So that, and in
Yes, I
terms
agree. I agree.
of pollination or proliferation, if we can capture, we do want to respect people's privacy if they're hungry or struggling and they're not willing to share, but just sharing the story that this
And
is
that's why this community is so
happening.
great. That's why this community is so amazing, because this community can actually help people, and that's what preaching. Where we're preaching to the choir, but
Well, we're preaching to the chefs this evening, Bags, and so within that, let's figure out some constructive thoughts here in our brainstorming session, and I will read down the list of items that Prof has sent me that typically have found their way into the pantry and was shared with Prof, and then Prof can also speak to some of the items that they've gotten quite a bit of. Maybe we can have some ideas as to how we can help cook and inspire ways
Right.
to use
So
those
yeah,
items.
so one thought I had was,
Hmm.
and this goes to your helping local and helping
Hmm.
globally, universally, is if we can pull together these amazing chefs that can come up with recipes, and then maybe what we do is we have chefs who are willing to run some kind of, and I would, I'm even thinking we build in some compensation for this within a proposal to do a cooking class with the food pantry items, and maybe that is online with the students,
It would be
and
very
they can
cool
be
to do
cooking at the
something
same
like that.
time, maybe doing through Zoom or streaming to YouTube, where they can be gathering online to do this, where it's not about necessarily focusing on their need, but focusing on, so that they don't have to say, oh, I needed to go to the food pantry or what have you. But it's more about, even if they're buying this food themselves, they still may have limited funds. So even if they're going to the store and buying whatever it is, peanut butter, flour, yada, yada,
Yeah,
we can
and it
help
can
them
be
put that
really
together.
fun
Wait,
to
And
wait,
that's
wait, wait,
important.
wait,
fun.
wait, wait, wait. There's an important point here. The barrier of entry. Wanting to go to the store and use well, I forget what you said, the food stamps, or the barrier that they have. I'm just gonna say that, and then you guys can go.
Okay. Yeah. So
Everybody's
go ahead.
barrier to entry is always unique. There's
Right.
always different elements to that. And again, like, I think our role within it will be to create this like safe and educational, entertaining, fun, positive
Exactly.
experience that makes things feel okay, makes people feel okay, makes people feel okay to feel okay or not okay. Like the whole thing. We need to just, Web3 is about being honest in this, but like we also can't hide in our shell. We need to be able to come forward into the rest of the world and really speak with like the conviction of leadership, and know that we are, at least now, micro funded, and hopefully in the future more funded to implement real world action. And so I think that, again, this is
And
a
I do
really
think
great
to
pilot
that,
episode
to
of
that,
that.
Shefo, to that point, like this is the opportunity to create this little MVP, right? This pilot program,
Totally.
and then hopefully we can spread it, much further, and
So
really
let's go
make a
down this
serious
let's
impact.
go
So go
down
ahead.
this
Yeah.
list, and let's get these chefs inspired here, Prof. So we have whole 2% and fat-free milk, quart-sized or half-gallon. We have sticks of butter, salted and unsalted. We have eggs, cheese, sliced and shredded, 8-ounce, 16-ounce packages. Frozen vegetables, 10-ounce and 32-ounce bags. Frozen fruit, 10-ounce, 32-ounce bags. Frozen chicken in 1-pound portions. Frozen ground beef, 1-pound portions. Frozen ground turkey, 1-pound portions. Frozen microwave meals. We have 1-pound boxes of pasta noodles, pasta sauce with red and Alfredo sauces in 24-ounce jars. We have cans of fruit or fruit cups, including pineapple, peaches, pears, mandarins, and applesauce. We have Pop Tarts, different flavors. We have boxes of macaroni and cheese. Shout out Contest Toshi. And we have boxes of cooking oil, including canola, vegetable, and avocado. And we have sleeves and boxes of crackers, different varieties. And
Right.
so within that, like that.
So I have an excellent recipe using canned mandarin oranges, where it's a mandarin orange cake. It's like a banana bread or any kind of a quick bread cake.
Let's go, Dynamo. This
But
sounds delicious.
So as instead of using like water, you just take the canned mandarin oranges and the liquid, and you use a teaspoon of the Chinese spices, and so you're just making a quick bread, and when the blender blends it up, it becomes an orange spiced quick bread cake. It's very simple, very, very cheap. It's flour, an egg, a can of mandarin oranges, and butter.
One thing that I had brought up with Prof when we were just brainstorming a little bit earlier was I didn't see flour on the list, and maybe it would be, we obviously want to support eating whole fruits and vegetables and other things like this, but we also know how many delicious things can be made from flour, including, crusts and baked items and things that need to be changed and kicked up.
What was that? You were saying a quick bread, like rapid, like fast,
bread.
like a
A
fast
quick bread is a bread that doesn't need leavening.
Yeah,
it's a baker's term, like banana bread or anything. So instead of using bananas,
like your mama's fruit bread, your mama's
like your
fruit cake is a
fruit cake. But you use just one of the cans of mandarin oranges, and it's one of the most delicious quick breads that I ever made in my life.
It's almost like a variation on like pasta in a sense, almost, right?
It's nothing like pasta. Absolutely not.
No, that
Definitely.
But there are variations on pasta is a big thing, and Prof asked me about pasta dishes.
For sure.
I have worked with the food pantry. Actually, the recipe isn't mine, but I kind of adapted it a little bit because there was a donation.
Like pasta's a flour too, and
Yeah,
bread is a flour. So
but
like bread and pasta, well, they're not totally two different things. They're similar,
right? Well, they are in the starch group, but there was actually a donation of like cans of peaches and fruit and things for a food pantry that I have worked for and done recipes for, and I found and tweaked the recipe for the mandarin orange cake, and it is amazing. And I have actually brought it to like potlucks or events, and people like always want the recipe, and it really is flour, water, butter, eggs, and a can of mandarin oranges, and half a teaspoon of Chinese 5 spice powder. And as a baker, it's amazing what you can do. So there are some things, and there's lots of things you can do with canned peaches and canned fruit and frozen fruit that are fantastic.
I have a hard time baking. I have a difficult time baking. I cook okay. I bake
bags,
not so
that's
great.
perfectly
Wait, but I just want to ask a quick question.
Yes.
Would you say like a solid preheat on the oven
of course
is like essential? Is
I'll
that
tell you. I'll
essential?
tell you the
It
few
is, and if
times.
you want to learn more about baking, this is not the show. Prof and I actually have a show on Monday night called Milk and Cookies, where Baker Dynamo, that's my other personality, No Dynamo, shows up, and we go deep, heavy into baking. I was just bringing that up because canned fruit is on the list, and we're doing a brainstorm, and I'm going
Bags,
to
maybe we'll
add that
Awesome.
to the cookbook.
maybe Bags,
Awesome.
maybe we need to get you a TikTok show where it's like Bags learns to bake. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that would be
Because
fun.
like that's you sound like
I
you would
gotta
be.
get on the bacon show. I gotta get my
This
bacon
could be
on.
hilarious,
I
Yeah.
but we
gotta-
will table that.
Hey,
We
so
will
and
table that
also,
for later.
yeah, just to mention, just to add to what Nona just said, yeah, we on Mondays at 8 o'clock on the same platform, we do milk and cookies, and we do a recipe each week. It's a baking recipe. We give you the recipe ahead of time, and you get a pro app with the recipe after. So definitely pop in there for that. But along what Nona was saying, I love that recipe. I think it's fantastic. One thought I had was it would be great to do one savory, one sweet, like maybe one baking, one cooking kind of thing, in terms of a recipe that we could, what
And we
I
also,
sort of what
you
was
and
in my
I also
thought.
talked
Oh, sorry.
about doing one that was vegetarian, and there are
Yes.
certain meats, and
Oh, I'd
I
love to
have
see
some
like a
vegetarian and
pasta,
casserole ideas as
Yeah.
well.
like with
All
a
right.
pasta or
Well, we're
something,
getting
something
deep
that
on
you can add
these
protein.
recipes
Yeah.
here. We're getting deep on these recipes here. We're gonna save this for the cookbook. We're gonna have to really drill down and make this easy
Right.
and doable and approachable. You
So
know,
that was my other
I
thought
think
in this. I
everyone
know you
likes
guys are
food.
talking.
Everyone likes food. Like food is the universal language. Like everyone likes nounish food.
so
Absolutely.
we have to kind of that is a challenge here as to in this particular case what is nounish food if we're gonna say it like that, and I love that, right? But like we want to be respectful of people's budget and time and let's just say like what we can really ask of them as far as like what their baseline knowledge of food is. And so I think that
Exactly.
we really do need to be strategic as well as inspired by these
And
conversations.
Sheffo, you had some interesting ideas today, because I had previously said crock pots. No, I had previously said microwaves in case
Right.
people didn't, and you brought up crock pots, and there are other things that you can put in a box or a basket to make people happy when
Yeah, so let
sharing.
me share that. No, because you mentioned the box thing.
I'm
Let me
crying
just
right now.
oh,
I
hold
am
on one
literally
second.
crying from humor right
Hey,
now.
hold on one second, passing bags. Let me just finish this thought. So just to explain this particular food pantry, I know you mentioned like the box of sometimes you do a box of products and you can put a recipe in, and it's all the products can be used for the recipe. The food pantry on campus works a little different. It's almost like a mini mart where you get a basket, you get to go in and pick what you want, and then they check you
That's
out. You just swipe
amazing.
your ID. So it's not like you can pick and choose. So
So
keeping that in
conceivably,
mind,
Prof,
yeah, go ahead.
we
Hmm.
could conceivably put together like a section for a specific
Yes.
thing.
Wait, could I
Yeah.
log on to TV?
Bags. I'm
Hold
not
on
in
one
the
sec.
mood right now.
Hold on one sec. Yeah, so I think that, yeah, I think if we put things together, even if we, put a couple items together that might be a little different, that they may not carry all the time, but that might make, so for example, if we get noun dust or we get
He's done.
the Chinese spices that Nono's talking about, something that they may not have that adds a little extra to what they do have, that would be helpful, along with whatever recipe. So the way I can see this, I love the idea of a cookbook, but I think it might be too, it's a lot to take on. So let's break it down to where we're doing it, maybe one recipe
I
a
think
week and
it is,
something
but
like that. And then at the end, we end up with a cookbook at the
Nono
very
had a
end.
really
Yeah.
great idea earlier because I oftentimes find myself trying to do too much or whatever, and then sometimes you don't get anything done. And so within that, instead of us printing a cookbook, what if we like just made it a digital PDF and
Absolutely.
we worked together. Maybe each one of us or whoever was going to have a recipe, maybe they got to design their own kind of like 8.5 by 11 page and make it look however they wanted, put their recipe on it. We could play around with that, but it could be a really easy thing so that anybody who had access to essentially like a printer could print out the recipe, or it would look really nice on their
Or
phone.
people who have a phone can read a
Right.
PDF on the phone. They don't have to
Totally.
print it.
So exactly.
Absolutely.
Let's not encourage the printing. Thank you. No.
Yeah.
And so within that, we should focus digitally. I think that'll be a really cool thing. And I just to frame that within just the overall larger conversation that we're having around how do we re-inspire conversations within the food world, and how do we help move food forward? And I think that's one thing that people who are involved in the DAO and these shows are inherently interested in and touched by and touch on some level. And I think that it's a really cool thing where we have this kind of unspoken expectation on ourselves to do good and to be nounish and to create things that can scale. But at the same time, we also there are no requirements necessarily, and there are no expectations.
Right.
And so we have an opportunity to figure out what pace actually creates things into actionable things, and maybe
And
that's
we can
slow and sometimes that's
inspire
fast.
again with the local, like if there
Yeah, I
are
love the local element.
right, if there are grocery stores or there's somebody doing food rescue with the group I work with, sometimes we pick up rescue flowers.
I like that as
Because
well. That was a cool suggestion to
because
have that as
they're
I
option.
love
going
that.
bad anyway, and we get them from the grocery store, and they're still good for somebody's house, and and we also sometimes put little positive notes, or sometimes we work with elementary school kids to explain, food insecurity and things like that. We get the kids to write little notes, and and again, I'm working with a group that has a box, but or we could do stickers, or they're to inspire healthy eating, inspire cooking, inspiring that we love one another and care for one another. And yes, a disaster and a hurricane is a big deal, and we want to inspire around that. But just in general, as humans and supportive people and nounish people, it's weird they like just to kindness is nounish, and
Absolutely.
and just
Absolutely.
adding a kindness element and a you can do it element is lovely.
Well, thank you for saying that, No Dynamo. And on that note, we will do our POAP for the evening, and we will celebrate Prof. Werder and her inspiration and her students in the food pantry with our POAP for this evening. And so, for those who are
Awesome.
in the know, get it out. I have already tested it; it is working. And so, get the POAP app out. I can do the whole POAP spiel, but maybe I won't. It's pretty cool. It's a proof of attendance protocol. We're here for it. You can go download the POAP app at the App Store, but if you don't have it,
Or poap.xyz.
poap.xyz, you've got a few more minutes. The code will be good. But the secret word for the evening is, and I have a little sound. Here we go. Ooh, one little sound. The secret word is all one word, 3 words: food pantry love.
Nice. That is lovely.
To celebrate everyone for coming and being supportive and being casual brainstormers, taking a part of your day to join, a group of people who are here to learn and discuss and hang out and do things and help people. And for us right now, we are going to try and do that through food, and specifically through the food pantry at the Florida Gulf Coast University. And so we have a few more minutes. We have 5 more minutes on the POAP window. Again, The word is food pantry love if you want that POAP. And
So
so
I'd
as
love to hear
Mhm.
from you and Ryan or anyone else who
Absolutely.
may have
Let's
some
bring
thoughts
Chef
on, like,
Ryan in here.
yeah,
We
I'd
need
love
to
to hear.
get it spicy. Chef Ryan,
Yeah,
can you give us
I'd love to
some
hear your
insight?
ideas around some recipes that might work with some of these foods. I'd love to hear that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a feeling Chef Ryan has answers for all of these items. Specifically, let's see on this list if I had to pick one, obviously fruit cups, and potentially I'm going to go with ground beef and frozen vegetables. Chef Ryan, let's go. All right, well, Chef Ryan, oh, here he comes.
Yes,
He had to get the apron on. The
I'm
knob's
actually
out.
in the shower since we were talking about honesty
Spicy.
but, and spiciness. So wonderful. We're all here talking about ground beef and fruit cups. Wow. What a combination.
I think he
Well,
said
That's kind of
ground beef
gross
and
to me,
just
but
frozen
whatever.
vegetables, but okay.
Well, so in all seriousness, Ryan, we might ask you to pause your shower. Hopefully, you got through the soaping part of it, but we have some delicious things here on the ingredients list. I was suggesting that if some of these items were in a frozen state, it might be interesting to write some recipes that could work with a crock pot or something that was really easy for people who aren't necessarily experienced with high heat cooking and all of that kind of craziness. So what are some of the things that pop to your mind as far as some great recipes that we could drill down on?
well, I was thinking something Brazilian and that we could do some
Ooh.
I can't think of my brain, but like I'm trying to do like uh not a compote, but yeah, like let's do like a like some well so we got ground beef and fruit cups. What kind of fruit cup are we talking here? Are we doing a Dixie cup with an occasional
That I'm
cherry?
not sure.
There's not
Do we have pear,
necessarily a requirement on that. If I
nectarine,
had ground
soy?
beef
Make it a
fruit cup,
chutney.
yeah,
Thank you.
The,
That
the
was
exactly,
one with
chef.
like cherries and pears and like that you get,
You could do a meatloaf with a
yeah,
fruit cup
we could just do
topping.
yeah, a tartare and chutney. Boom. Call it a day. Let's go.
Wow.
So, okay, let's move on to another ingredient here. This is actually an important ingredient. It's one that people have all the time, and it does take a little bit of mise en place to get it to a good point. But we have frozen chicken. This would be one that for me, would fall into like the crock pot category. What are some thoughts here on frozen chicken? Blooms, do you have thoughts on frozen chicken? We see you down there. That is our host of Blooms in Season, hiding behind the mushroom. PFP. Maybe we could throw some mushrooms
He might
in
also
with the
be in the
frozen
shower. Who knows?
chicken.
I don't use frozen chicken too often, to be completely honest.
We're using it tonight, though, sir.
Yeah, I think that's
I'm
the challenge. A lot of times chefs they're so used to those, that these ingredients
That's
might just be
exactly
not what they
right,
like
Prof.
to work
Werner.
with. So we got to
yeah.
Exactly.
adapt a little
That's
bit.
exactly right. Thank you very much. And in this case, we've had a hurricane, and we also have, people with needs. And so it's our responsibility
I
as
don't even
foodies.
eat chicken, but I have worked again with the pantry for frozen chicken. Lots of times I just have people roast off the chicken, even from the frozen state. You can just turn it, the oven on or whatever. And then,
A little bit of a tough one. As a non-chicken eater, I appreciate the love of the chicken, but
but
I'm going
then
to
you
have to
then you
say,
can do chicken salad, like cook it off and do something else with it.
I'm
Add
going to have to
mayonnaise,
say, if you're
grapes, and
going to,
walnuts, and you got a Waldorf salad. You have to kind of think that is a starting. That all I'm saying, it's a starting point, not an ending point.
Throw
Yeah,
it in the crock pot with some water and spices and make a stew.
yes, exactly. Thank you, Chef. And we have tried to get Noun's Dust on here this evening. Hopefully, we'll have them be part of the conversation. One of the things that we're interested in is seeing if we can use some of the Nounish products like the Noun's Dust to come in and be involved in the pantry as a way to kick the flavor up and spread the word of the Nouns. And so everybody has their
Yeah,
schedules and all this. So
really yummy food is right. Like, what about a mirepoix? Like take the frozen chicken, put it in a bowl, add the carrots, the celery, the onion, like boil it off. You get some, get some chicken soup out of it. Doesn't matter if it's frozen.
absolutely,
interesting idea.
absolutely. So we will continue to play around with some of these ideas. We
Oh, I
also
will
have
also say something else to keep in mind. They have a lot of soups,
okay
different soups.
in
So
soups in a can.
yeah, in a
Okay.
can. So that might be something that can be worked in there. So
Oh,
I can
dude, I got you
I'll
on the
try and get some more
soups.
specifics on that tomorrow and see if I can,
With
expand on
if
that
you
for
got
you.
the cream of mushroom, the cream of celery, all that kinds of stuff, I can make vegetarian casseroles for
I
days.
think that we should
Right?
add that to the list. No, I think that that's correct. I do think that that
And
is
then
the situation.
also I make cakes with soups.
Well, now you're just
Really?
Because
making the town.
I make
Somebody
tomato
hit the
soup
mute button.
cake,
Somebody, I'm
because
just kidding. I'm
Tomato
just
the,
kidding.
soup
the
cake?
the the soups
It's the thing, Prof.
are
It's
can be a
actually
good
real.
basis for some batters actually,
That's
which
interesting.
is
No,
weird,
and
but
maybe
it
we
is
can
actually
have
a thing.
maybe we'll have an adventurous part of the cookbook,
That's cool.
and I would encourage you to add both of those to the list. We do have a list started. We're working on that, and so I think that we'll have some really good ideas. I would like to see recipes from different people within the DAO, different holders, members of the Kitchen Council, food nounders, Prof Worder. And so, Prof, before we kind of wrap up, let's talk about the students. Let's bring it back to the students. How do we see us being able to interface with the students in this particular dynamic? And are the students from any of your particular classes going to be helping and involved in this effort?
Yes, I do believe they will be involved in this effort. And from my blockchain class, and we were already talking about putting this proposal together. I had them brainstorming, giving me some ideas. And then we shifted a little bit just because we realized that we could do something a little more sustainable. So we're going to take a beat. But I think that interfacing with them in a couple different ways. One, to give them, in terms of my blockchain class, this gives them the opportunity to learn about DAOs and to learn about proposals and putting in props in the whole Nounish ecosystem. So I took that opportunity this week while we were chatting about this. So there's that piece of it. And then what I'd love to do is bring in a few people from the DAO to Zoom into class to talk about proposals and feedback and things like that. But the other way I think we could interface a little bit and connect is through some sort of, if we figure out some sort of cooking class of sorts. And I don't know what that looks like. And I don't know if that's on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or what, but I think that's an opportunity to develop something that could be, like we were talking about, local and universal. That could be universal, right? That could be, yes, we're speaking to the local students that we're working with right now, but it's something that could be proliferated much further. So I think we have a couple points of contact. We have a couple, opportunities here. I think we take it one step at a time and then see where we can go with this to really try and make a dent in food insecurity for college students, as well as helping them develop really strong nutrition skills.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that it's a multi-prong approach, and I think that by doing that, it really also creates an opportunity where someone may be inspired to cook, someone might be inspired to eat something new, cook something new. Uh, and I think we can also make recipes for items that may not be in the pantry, for items that might be based on lettuce. If someone goes out and buys a big thing of salad, maybe we teach them how to kick it up, and so they can eat
Oh, and
salads.
that's one other thing I forgot to mention is they do get fruits and vegetables fresh, but they're very random because it's
Totally.
along the lines of the food rescue that Nono's talking about.
Right.
So it's not something we can
I would
count
love
on.
to help
So it helps with that
encourage
part.
food rescue and fruits and vegetables, and how we do that with the nonprofit I work with, and providing,
And I think they are
a
doing some of
platform.
that. They are doing some of that. I did find out it's just not as consistent. Like, so we don't know for sure. You know, right now they have avocados. Next week they may not. So
Totally.
that's just gets a
And
little
I
more
think that
tricky
we can.
to plan for.
If we have like a website, or like if I have in the group that I work with, I get a day's notice, you know. So, and we have more chefs than me. And in my group we have like 5 people that are on the chef list, which is crazy because there's so many chefs in town, and we're actually working to try to get more locally. But, you know, if they know that they have avocados, and they even tweet, we have avocados, you know, it could even be a contest. Like, we have avocados. What are 900 things that we can do with avocados? Like, if we create a Twitter, you know, and get those things
Absolutely.
out
That
there,
could be
it could
really
be
cool.
both a proliferation tool and something, and then the best one gets in, you know, in the PDF or whatever. So,
Right. So it's kind of like
if
what
there's a
what we
way
were
for us
talking
to
about.
communicate, we can do great turnaround on that kind of thing.
Well,
And I think
let's
that's
use
kind of
our
what we were talking
communication.
about right from the beginning was, you know, also kind of helping the food pantry get the word out, right? So that was a little challenge. And some of these things will help them by
Well, so
providing
let's
them some
start with.
content they can share, which is great.
Let's kick that off this evening, Prof, and we will do a retweet. We will if you're so inclined, we have a contest this evening for a food noun. I believe Contest Toshi is giving away a jelly toast food noun this evening. So how about Contest Toshi says hello and puts a little jam in our toast?
Surprise! It's
Surprise.
me, Contest Toshi. I did tweet out sort of at the beginning of the space. Hi, Prof. Wow. First of all, the food pantries for the universities is so important, and just thank you guys for sharing that. And
it's going to be really great.
Yep.
I think that we should all be very proud of ourselves.
I agree. And then the recipes as well to sort of assist everybody. I know that, like, I've had my most broke times while I was in college, and then sometimes I feel like the insecurity from food or of food or almost could be there because you almost have an insecurity to ask for help, right? You're sort of still in that phase where you're like suffering alone or trying to do that. So I definitely remember those days. And, you know, as much as I can rag on fast food and things, like there was a time where the McDonald's drive-through person might have saw me 3 times in a day because I was able to like round up literally change to get something from the dollar menu. So I will never ever forget that. And I wish that my college had maybe had something that was just as great as this, because these are such key ingredients that you really could. I mean, I was just loving listening to you guys come up with all different recipes. And then I was also thinking of some myself. So it would be fun to submit recipes. I will definitely be doing that. I will also be giving out this amazing jelly toast. That's also a great almost food pantry thing, because I know that sometimes you get loaves of bread.
They have
lots
jelly
of bread, peanut butter toast all day.
Peanut butter, and I don't know about jelly, but I know they have peanut butter. They got tons of bread that just came in. So yeah, anything with that would be fab.
That's amazing. So in honor of the food pantries at universities and just all the beautiful work that you do with everybody, Prof, thank you so much across all the different communities here in the Nouns. We will be giving away a food noun today. I did do the retweet pickers. Let's see if I can get a drum roll.
We have 14 retweets here, Contest.
Andre Kurnyawan, let's go. Very exciting. I would implore you, Andre, to add FOODNOUN O Clock and FOODNOUNS DAO. It's the one with the pink background. That was really awesome, like the FOODNOUNS logo on the noggles. And if you add them, DM us, get us your wallet address. We will send you this delicious jelly toast. It's really fun in the Discord of the Food Nouns. It's a small group of us right now.
An
And so it's
excellent
kind of,
morning food noun. That's a very great
yes,
GM food noun.
Fabulous.
it is. It is. There's like rare ones that are kind of just for breakfast, I feel like, but
I'm telling you, that's one of the ones that I've had my eye on that I'd like to get eventually is the jelly toast. I think it's cute.
it's so
And
good.
if people are having ideas about this, or tomorrow, if you're saying, "Oh gosh, I have this recipe that would be great for this," come into the Discord and throw it up there. You know, like we are friendly and we really want your input. You know, you don't have to be a holder to input. We're a very welcoming bunch.
Well, definitely. And
And
within the Food Nouns Discord, there is a prep kitchen section, and there's a open public channel that is called the kitchen. And so feel free to jump in there and communicate. And then as items make their way on chain or through the prep kitchen, there will also be individual channels for those items as they essentially go through their launch phases. And so there will be different channels to communicate with the people involved and to make suggestions and to keep up to date with all that. And so we are excited. We feel pretty confident that we have done a good job to lay the groundwork on some of that infrastructure within the Discords. And so, and that also goes for the Food Noun O Clock Discord. We think that there's some great channels in there, and we would encourage people to help us grow these things and to get started and to kick us in the butt and, you know, come have conversations with us.
And I'm hoping that this will turn into a Food Noun O Clock show where we address, you know, inexpensive, healthy, fun recipes, because we are adding shows, and, you know, and our Milk and Cookies format where we cook live and have the POAP be the recipe could be something that people could participate in. And we would love to have someone show up and say, "Hey, I want to be that person that does this."
Absolutely.
I'm really excited. This is one of the most exciting topics for me personally, with my story and everything. I would love to be just the main guest with Prof on her show, or have you on mine. And I would love to have that. That was actually the main theme of what I was doing before Food Nouns with my previous food brand was min-maxing and teaching, and having came from the test kitchen environment where have, you know, unlimited food from clients, sponsors, whatever, like, and then having a traumatic brain injury and then being on disability, and the reality of learning how to make the most of nothing. And having to live on food banks and food
Artisan
stamps is very
Weapon,
powerful.
Ryan, we should talk about making this show as another show, and there are many people who could be involved in that, and it feels like that's a passion of yours. So let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. We obviously know in our hearts and have enough experience as people that, you know, when someone or a group of people is passionate about something, the results are usually much more sincere and much better in the execution and in the final product. And so we definitely welcome the conversation. Obviously, we've gone a few minutes over our hour this evening, and within that, we want to continue this conversation. And so again, we encourage people to come into the Discord, tweet at us, or reach out to one of us individually. And, you know, there's different ways to jump into the conversation. And I think the best part of the DAO ecosystem structure is really a lot of these projects find themselves to be fairly open in nature, especially in the beginning parts of them, when things are coming together and solidifying and people are bringing different talents to different groups. And so when things are in their infancy, it really is the best time to jump in and really kind of just be a part of something and join people that you may not know. And so we encourage people to come do that. But I would just like to say personally, thank you to Prof tonight. I always enjoy having more time to speak with you. I have a list of topics that I would like to go over.
On forever.
Yes, no, I have a great list.
Ryan, thank you for sharing, and Aptoshi, thank you both for sharing your personal experices.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
And No, thank you for the fruit
Nono,
cup inspiration and all of the wonderful stuff that you have shared with us this evening. And we also hope to get more inspiration from you.
That's my other tagline, fruit cup inspiration.
All right. Well, thank you for being such a sweet little fruit cup. Please.
I just pinned from Food Noun Style, so that if you click on that tweet that they just retweeted, it'll bring you to that Twitter space, and you can click on the Discord. So check that out.
That's amazing, and it's a great use of the up top. Everyone has a different name for it, but for tonight we will call it the dry storage.
Right. And those of you that have expressed interest in baking, come visit Prof and I on Monday nights and bake with us. We have a really, really good time.
So they have a great show over there, and we will encourage people to DYOR and figure out what other shows we have going on. But we are offering 7 shows, 1 each night. They're all kind of different. Some are about baking, some are about gardening, and others are about, hanging out, being a chef. And tonight we're talking about ways to help feed college kids who have been affected by a hurricane, and then how does this continue once they've kind of stabilized. And so within that, we like ending things on an inspired high note. I actually think that's a really cool thing. It kind of leaves you wanting to figure out ways to help and do more. And so we will do that. And hopefully from our energy this evening, we will have lots more great conversations and connections. Michael, thank you so much for coming. We look forward to hearing more of your delicious recipes as we move forward. Everyone's delicious recipes. I have a song for us this evening, and it is one that I'm sure most of us know. It is about strawberries. So here we are.
All righty.
Have a good night. We will see you next Wednesday on FOODNOUN O Clock, and I'm sure we will have something delicious to talk about. So good night.